everybody.
Good job. And welcome back to Seattle Sucks, the podcast.
The podcast about hating the city we love.
And it's clear it's another Colin is not here day. And we're not on the boat. We are landlocked currently.
Yeah, I mean, it is a mobile home. So
yeah, instead of being ensconced in 180 square foot of oiled teak, we are now in 850 square feet of manufactured home.
Yeah,
with cats on the loose. So, just extra special recording at my house today.
Yeah,
in the shadow of the now defunct Viking sports bar. Too bad.
I feel like if I tell everyone why we're recording here, it's only going to reinforce the incorrect and prejudiced narrative about that or image that people have about my living situation in their minds when they hear that I live on a sailboat.
Greg's life is just that Simpsons scene of Lenny in the house, just like, don't tell people how I live.
No, it's the opposite of that. Naiad is very cozy and hospitable. Mm-hmm. It's just that in all that rain,
mm-hmm.
I am still in a work hangover mode here. Like I worked probably like 75 hours
mm-hmm.
last week, 6 days right through Saturday. That was yesterday, right?
Yep.
And I got home Friday night to realize that there was a leak from
mm-hmm.
the cabin top somewhere. Probably not a big one, but it probably been just slowly, getting in the big rain for days. So it was just like soaked under all the cushions of the port settee and and then back under the storage under that. Honestly, it's not like that big a deal, except that to get at and mop that all up and try and find where it was coming from so I could, stuff some goop in it.
Is that the scientific term for fixing a boat? Is just
that's
some goop in
the
it?
Temporary, yeah. But you just have to. I had to take everything out, and there's lots. Naiad's very roomy, but the second you remove the settee cushions and empty the whole port stowage
mm-hmm.
locker, it's there. I can't even walk in the boat. So
yeah.
It's still like under the cracks, in the joints of the. There's still it's just now kind of dried out, so I'm ready to throw everything back. Because I think I went and
You think you gooped the right hole?
I think I gooped around the port light sufficiently that was probably it. I already knew it was leaking there, just it hadn't rained that bad to put so much water in the boat, but
yeah,
it's just fucking annoying.
Yeah. Well, as we've discussed, this podcast is a lot like the movie The Lighthouse, and in this case, you're Robert Pattinson, where the labor plus the conditions in the house itself are slowly driving you insane, and you are the husk before me who refuses to sing the chants at dinner with me, or to toast. You just want to eat.
I definitely see myself as more of a Willem Dafoe figure.
Hey, but don't we all?
But I'll have to think about that. Yeah.
All right. Well, so that's the story. So if the acoustics are a little bit off, this house wasn't designed for podcasting, perfect podcast echo and acoustics like your boat was. Yeah. So if there's, echoes going on, loud thumps, anything like that, that's our house. That's our bad. It's the house. But I thought since Colin's gone, we could do a little news potpourri episode.
Oh, the laziest possible scenario. Yeah.
Well,
excellent.
we don't have to say that part out loud, but yes.
I have no energy for anything else. I have not been reading the Slack this week. The news drops. So this is all new to me. I have no idea what happened in the world because I had to do a job of work.
Well, as the only person who worked this week, I sympathize with you, and let's just get on into it. First off, Greg, I would like to wish you a merry impeachmas.
What?
That's right. We did it. We won. The Cheeto has been cheating his way through his first term, and now it's all come to an end.
Wow. Donald Trump resigned in disgrace. Incredible.
Amazing. So I would like to just read to you my favorite speech from just before the impeachment vote, which was from Hank Johnson, a Democrat in Georgia. And it was just very inspirational, and I just want to get your take on it. So he begins, "While I didn't vote for President Trump, I respect the office he holds. I didn't call for impeachment when the president shut down our government, or tried to rip health care from those with pre-existing conditions, or embarrassed us on the world stage, or pardoned political cronies, or took money from our troops to fund his wall, or tore babies from their mothers at the border.
Ooh.
I didn't call for impeachment then, not because I supported those actions. I simply felt that impeachment should be reserved for moments when our democracy itself is in danger, when the sign says, 'In case of emergency, break glass.' There better be one heck of an emergency. I did not call for impeachment before, but I call for it today, because this is one heck of an emergency." I got chills.
Wow. I am inspired. I mean, wow, the measured reasonableness of that just has my cock throbbing.
Well, you only call for it in emergency. Things that aren't emergencies, concentration camps on the border. Things that are emergencies, potentially tattling on your preferred candidate's son getting a fucking job, a no-show job. Cool.
Like,
Love it.
The like backward. I mean, this is what many Americans have been like pulling their hair out about for the last 4 years, but the fucking backward instincts of these people, like the understanding. Forget that this is a craven hack and that he probably did vote for Trump, but like what that is about in his mind is sounding reasonable to, say, people who support the president who are skeptical of the impeachment. And it's just like, why? What would possess you? Like, why bother?
Well, at this point in the game, too, like, who do you think you're going to convince? And sure enough, let's check the oh, yes, 0 Republicans voted for this, just like they'll do in the Senate, which means that it is all pointless venture.
I mean, if anything even happens in the Senate.
Yeah. So the whole thing's completely pointless. But, Greg,
I'm guessing it goes nowhere. Like, not even a no. I would be very surprised if there was actually like a trial in the Senate. Yeah. That'd be amazing.
Well, interesting you bring that up, because there are things happening in the Senate, Greg.
Okay.
And this really was just a prelude to this little interview I heard on NPR's Here and Now the other day. That's right, guys. I'm a real intellectual, all right? I turned that radio dial on, and I'm like, Katy Perry, no thanks. Generic rock band from the 90s that's still being played on Seattle radio for some reason. No way, bro. I go straight to NPR. I'm like, where are people just chatting? Let me get that going. Because people who just listen to people talk inanely, what losers.
Seriously.
We'll edit that out later. But anyways, yeah, so this was an interview on Friday with Mark Joseph Stern, the courts and law writer for Slate. But I just thought it was a real, again, inspiring tale of what actually is happening in the Senate. So this is quoting this guy. Majority Leader Mitch McConnell knows that the Senate is going to shut down for an impeachment trial sometime soon, and he wants to confirm as many judges as possible. He has been striking deals with senators across the aisle to confirm packages of judges. The way this works is that you have a few conservative judges and a few sort of centrist judges that are acceptable to Democrats. And while the Democrats probably won't vote for the conservative judges, they will allow McConnell to bring all these nominations to the floor as a package, effectively ensuring that all of them will be confirmed. So, what he's basically saying is Mitch McConnell struck a deal with the Senate Democrats of like, yeah, we'll engage your little impeachment fiasco. All you have to do is let this just giant pile of ghouls into the federal judiciary.
Hang on. Does that imply that the deal was to go ahead with an impeachment trial? It sounds like it wasn't. It sounds like, from what you read just then, that the deal was to get some probably also very conservative but centrist judges, along with the white nationalists and like actual lunatics, and that's the deal, and that the Democrats are just assuming he's going to do the right thing or something, so they're not just like.
Yeah, it seems like what he basically told them was like, hey, to make sure that we have time for any sort of event like an impeachment trial, we need to go and slam, Yosemite Sam through this right now. And the Democrats said yes, and Mitch McConnell's a man of his word, so the impeachment could still, it's definitely going to happen because
I don't know.
Because he's an honest man, and I'm sure he'll do what he says.
I mean, I would bet he hasn't even promised that much. I don't get from that reporting there. I bet that he hasn't even been part of the conversation. Because first of all, McConnell's been pushing through the judges for the last 3 fucking years. Like, that's been the number one thing the Senate has done.
Yeah. Interesting that you bring that up. So this comes up.
So this
in the
is like
interview.
not a new thing, yeah.
Yeah, this comes up in the interview. Well, no, apparently, so they just shoved through 12 like last week, so it's speeding up a bit. But this comes up in the interview. So the interviewer asks them about how long the judges serve, which our friend here reminds us these judges will serve for life. These are lifetime appointments. They will be there as long as they wish, probably through the 2050s or 2060s. A lot of these judges are very young. Many are in their early 30s or early 40s.
Amazing.
And the fact that Trump has appointed more than a quarter of all the appellate judges tells you all you need to know about how his legacy will survive. The vast majority of federal cases end at the appellate level in these circuit level courts. A huge number of those will be decided by Trump judges who will determine what the law is.
Yeah, well,
so,
the
huge victory.
Incredible speed and efficiency with which McConnell and Trump have gotten judges on the bench is directly in contrast to the incredibly poor numbers put up by the Obama administration, even when they controlled literally the entire government. Basically put almost no one in the federal judiciary.
Oh, as I recall, a certain Obama appointee from Chicago was quoted as saying, "Who gives a shit about the courts?"
Yeah. Yeah.
So another huge win for the legacy.
People who will never be accused of crimes because they're too powerful in the first place. That's who.
Yeah. So this reporter does go on to say on the pace issue that this is a record pace. Nothing like this has ever occurred in history, actually. Trump has appointed almost as many judges in less than 3 years as Obama did in 8.
Yeah,
so,
but
cool.
But to understand that number, you have to know that the Obama administration failed in one of its basic duties of putting judges on the federal bench. So the Trump administration, viewed like in some apolitical way, is catching up. Like there are vacancies, like so they're just doing government essentially.
Sure.
You need this pace. So the issue isn't the pace; it's that the people they're putting on the bench are fucking psychotic right-wing, like theocrats.
Yeah. Well, instead of putting people up there because they have a long history of service and stuff, they're putting 30-year-olds on the bench because they want them to be there forever. And
because the conservative movement is actually grooming those people to do exactly that,
Yeah. So another fun reminder that while people were having their fun, jerking themselves off, singing impeachment Christmas carols, Donald Trump is like fundamentally shaping the court system in the United States by putting in Yosemite Sam in charge.
Well, look, and
what a fucking waste of time this whole Russiagate and Ukraine-gate shit was.
Yeah, it's fucking bullshit.
What a fucking jerk
But
off.
by the same token, like that, you can't look at this at like what is like the baseline is not like what is the normal pace here. So similarly, it's important to not limit the horizons of change to, these people, we fucked up. These people are going to be on the bench till the 2060s for the rest of their lives. These bow tie Republican Klan kids, and because you can't, if you set the horizon there, we're going to be in trouble. The goal for any movement worth backing, any party worth voting for, should be to impeach all of them for crimes they've certainly committed.
Yeah,
and
I'm sure the Democrats
just
will
get rid of them all.
I'm sure the Democrats will sack up and do that.
That's not anything the Democratic Party will ever do. But But if you just limit the horizon to that, I mean, then what's the fucking point?
I'm just thinking, Mao and the Cultural Revolution had some good ideas on this. Maybe we could have instead of a Pol Pot-ish, instead of let's empty the cities, maybe let's just empty the judiciary type scenario. Definitely parody. But yeah, think about that. I heard at the tail end of the Cold War they invented a neutron bomb that only took care of judges. But yeah, there's also the point too of, we've said on the show before, pretty much any judge you run into is the dumbest fucking person on the planet. The fact they're able to decide anything is part of why you're talking
to the historical norm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's what's even judges appointed by Democratic administrations tend to be essentially conservative shitheads and really dumb fucking people. This is an incredible new low, the people who are getting on the bench now. But I mean, well, as I recall, it was the end of Obama administration, he was going to appoint a Supreme Court judge, and he found a guy who was, quote, so conservative that Republicans would have to vote for him, and they just told him to go fuck himself and appointed their own guy after 2016. So, Democrats, even when they win, they lose, and that's the story. So let's maybe move on here. We have a transition story here from City Lab called Trump's Plan to Criminalize Homelessness is Taking Shape. With his partner in this effort, Mayor Jenny Durkan. Is that what the next sentence is going to read?
Oh, Greg, you have foreseen the future, and it is good. So the White House is taking steps towards divisive new action on homelessness. Sorry, did I say divisive? Decisive new action on homelessness. Bucking policies favored by advocates in favor of an aggressive approach that centers the role of law enforcement.
Yeah, that doesn't sound divisive at all. That sounds extremely bipartisan.
Yeah. Some of these efforts hit roadblocks this week, but more measures are in the works, including a rumored executive order on homeless encampments. Advocates say that they expect an executive order on homelessness to assign new resources to police departments to remove homeless encampments and even strip housing funds from cities that choose to tolerate these encampments. It's one of several efforts being steered by the White House's Domestic Policy Council in concert with the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development.
Wow. Homeless, issue aside, police department, big federal programs where the police departments get funds and equipment from the U.S. government. Always bad news. I mean, trying to picture what specifically, aside from just, more assault rifles, what are they all going to get? Is there going to be a federal program to assign 3 or 4 Israeli armored bulldozers to every police department in America?
They're gonna get that steamroller thing from Soylent Green that just runs over the corpses in the street and stuff.
Yeah.
Well, so advocates say that the government's looking closely at ways to turn former correctional facilities and federal buildings into shelters. First off, Mayor Jenny's already beat him to the punch on that one. But isn't it interesting when it comes to emergency shelters for the homeless? The first thought is always, well, we just put them in prisons.
Yeah.
How about that? It'll be a former jail, not the current jail. Therefore, it's different than just putting them in jail for being poor, because it's a former jail. I mean, the cells will still be there and stuff, and they won't be allowed to leave. But yeah.
Conveniently, it will have the infrastructure of a jail.
Exactly.
Wow. Trump and Jenny, so great minds think alike.
Yeah, and I think we can look forward to this because they are narrowing their focus for this new program on a list of 24 cities and states, all of which have large numbers of unhoused people sleeping outside. Most are located on the West Coast, where Trump has sought to embarrass progressive officials by intervening. By the way, Seattle, definitely on this list. So we can look forward to a new, exciting era of cooperation between our mayor and our president. So, particularly when he gets 4 more years, they end up nominating Joe Biden to campaign against him, or even better, Pete Buttigieg. But yeah. So that brings us to what's going on. See, you foresaw where we were going with this.
Yeah.
Because Jenny Durkan also announced a bold new proposal of her own.
Okay.
And this is from the C is for Crank. Durkan pushes city to study biometric tracking of homeless customers.
What?
Yeah.
What the fuck is a homeless customer? It implies you're buying something, first of all.
Yeah, well, you need a service-based model, So this is from Erica Barnett. And at the direction of Mayor Jenny Durkan, the city's Human Services Department is studying the possibility of mandatory biometric screening of homeless shelter and service clients using fingerprints or other biometric markers to track the city's homeless population as they move through the homelessness system.
Oh, I mean, that sounds like it'll help solve the problem.
Well, digital ID, according to the Durkan spokeswoman, Kamaria Hightower, would create efficiencies that will help improve the situation.
Well, I mean, it's just so... I mean, it's how this podcast keep going, right? Because it's just so easy to see, it's like there's not just one angle to take. Like, forget the idea that they're going to track people's biometrics, that they're going to, tally up all the services you've ever been a customer of, that they're going to have share your data with, the every government agency, that you're going to be on a fucking list, that it's a giant waste of time and money, that efficiency is really just a code word for fewer staff. Forget all of that. The thing to start with here is the idea that efficiencies matter at all in this scenario. It's a joke. That's fucking laughable on its face. If we just spend the money we are spending 1% more efficiently, if we get that extra 1% back, fuck, man, we got this shit licked. We don't need to change the basic parameters of our economy. We don't need to actually, invest in any kind of change with real dollar amounts that would matter. Just efficiencies.
Yeah, well, and it is the typical liberal thing too of the real problem with why the homelessness services aren't working is that too many undeserving people are gaining access to it. So we need to have a face print of every homeless person.
Well, think of
because
the data they'll have.
People are getting into the shelter to sleep for the night.
Think of the data. Think of the lists they'll be able to generate of people who keep taking those services and yet never get their lives together. Who remain crushed under the heel of capitalism. I mean, there are also, this is very Seattle in that it's clearly just what the actual announcement here is a big contract for some fucking tech vendor that's just gonna make millions off some junk.
Well,
that nobody needs.
They were mentioning that in the internal emails that Erica Burnett had, they were talking about how they wanted to model this after San Francisco's own biometric program for the homeless that is run by some idiot tech company who apparently gets about $630,000 a year to run this. And it does mention later from Bloomberg Business Week, let's see, since implementing the one system digital ID in San Francisco, there's not been an increase in access to permanent housing. That was very shocking.
Oh my gosh,
I really
what?
thought efficiencies would be gained.
Wow.
I had to read it multiple times. I had to get out my little looking glass to look at it, but apparently, where this has been tried in other cities, of course, has not improved the situation regarding homelessness at all. But maybe this time.
It's almost like you'd have to be fucking brain dead to like say any of this shit into a microphone or like type it into a press release.
Yeah, well, as one of the tech security experts that Erica Burnett talked to, Shankar Narayan, director of the Technology and Liberty Project for the Washington State ACLU, says, "Why is it so difficult for them to identify people through a means other than putting everyone's biometrics in a database? What problem is your shiny tech doodad the solution to? And if you're going to force people to give up their biometrics, it better be for a really good reason. But we haven't had the chance to have that conversation because they're just jumping ahead to the shiny new thing."
Well, they're gonna buy a bunch of devices. They're gonna have to build databases that then they're gonna have to pay more software dipshits to integrate with other things. When in the end, if you really have to track these people, they have fucking names,
Yeah.
But also like there's also like an admission of defeat here, because what you're talking about in all of these conversations about the efficiencies and whatever is building. Essentially, this is very much about building infrastructure to manage a homeless population. So, like, we should build zero infrastructure to fight homelessness. We should build permanent changes in our economy and in our welfare system that serve people living lives in homes with dignity, because then you won't have those people. You won't have to be managing a homeless population. Okay, so any shit like this is a fucking dead end, but it's deliberate. That's the idea. The idea is management here.
I don't know. I mean, when IBM steps in to help you with your census, it's not like anything could go wrong. So yeah, hilariously, Erica Barnett got hold of some of the internal emails, and the Human Services Department strategic advisor, Dusty Olson, got a question from one of his staff asking, "What is the problem the mayor's office is trying to solve around biometrics since we've already invested in scan cards?" To which Olson responded, "I am not sure they're trying to solve a specific problem. She probably just heard about a cool thing. I doubt they're even aware that we use scan cards. I think we just need to do research on biometrics and make a recommendation."
Oh my God.
So that rules.
That is... Wow.
I'm going to guess that Dusty Olson wasn't counting on that getting out.
That's the exact... But I mean, like, that's so... What's funny about that is not... Like, that's not shocking at all. That's, like, exactly how we picture, like, these people operating.
Oh, yeah.
Like, it's not... But it's like, that candid statement doesn't always get out like that.
Yeah.
So perfectly encapsulating that these are just... rich careerist dipshits like Mayor Jenny, who's just a fucking rich moron who doesn't give a fuck about anybody, about the city, except whatever fucking metrics she can put up to and awards she can bring in for the city. Can stand up at a press conference, say we're a world-class city and we're a tech hub and we're innovative, because it reflects well on her to go on with whatever is next in her life, which she's hoping, I guess, is in like a Joe Biden administration or some shit.
Oh, Jesus Christ. Seattle Sucks says R.I.P. to Dusty's highway bone, but thanks for reporting on it anyways. So since the story came out and it made a little bit of waves, the Durkan administration gave Erica Barnett a response, a little canned response. And I just thought that you would love the language in this. So quoting, Mayor Durkan is focused on finding innovative and customer-driven ways to improve services for people experiencing homelessness. Customer-driven. That feels good.
Ew.
With that said, utilizing biometric technology was a recommendation of the National Innovation Service.
Does it say what, like, asswipe actually had to say these things to Erica Barnett? Like, who had to debase themselves?
Hightower. Yes, the spokesperson that we mentioned earlier. So I like this, though. With that said, utilizing biometric technology was a recommendation of the National Innovation Service, which I love the idea that there's something called the National Innovation Service.
Yeah, wow. You know what, that name doesn't actually tell you, like, that sounds like that's probably just a lobbying group, right?
Almost certainly.
That's not like it's meant to sound in this art dropped like that's like some federal commission on, like, you know, improving the bureaucracy or possibly homelessness, or like to just wash over you, but that sounds like a tech lobbying group.
I think that it is basically, if you were to go to their building, it's just like a Lovecraftian horror, and they just keep descending down until you eventually see a bunch of fish people worshiping at an altar.
That's plausible. I'm gonna posit that actually it shares an address with some other larger lobbying group, and there's one guy who works for it. But he's actually an employee of some other giant lobbying group.
So they got their recommendation from the NIS, which came after close consultation with customers, learning from them the specific barriers they face.
This is like, you can imagine the learning process here, and like how many questions that with obvious answers you have to ignore before like leading someone toward like something that says, yeah, we need innovative solutions. Because like, how many ways can a customer say, I need a house?
Yeah.
Like over and over again, and just be rebuffed until you sort of lead them down the path of going like, yeah, I guess we need to come up with new and innovative ways to get me a house. I don't know.
They just found some homeless guy in the street, and they're like, excuse me, customer. What do you think could help you with your situation here? And he's like, maybe if you like scanned my face, and anytime I wanted soup, I had to shove my face onto a board. Like, you know,
the real contract to win here is the one that integrates it all and manages it permanently. Okay, like this, like honestly, Magnolia Mindset Machine Learning Academy should write up like a proposal, a pitch, to manage this whole process where we integrate, Samaritan and these like biometric scans and whatever the fuck else, the Jenny, your digital mayor app.
So this is a wonderful foreshadowing of what we're going to talk about in the Patreon episode. But the Ring, the famous company that we keep talking about, has an office in the Ukraine that like handles all of like the data and stuff like that. And apparently they throw these giant parties where they like make custom shirts that, say like fuck crime. But apparently, which everybody focused on that one, but the one that actually is the most disturbing was a hoodie that they gave all their employees that on the back that said, machine learning will set us free. And that is some Terminator, Cyberdyne Systems fucking shit.
I mean, my first thought was Auschwitz, but
yeah, it fucking rules. And
wow,
I look forward to that.
Holy
future.
Shit, can we get those?
I presumably, yeah. I mean,
is that on eBay? Can I get a machine learning will set us free hoodie? I don't even wear I would wear that hoodie. I don't even wear shit with shit printed on it, but
I'm just imagining.
That is the most perfectly, like, that is some Seattle sucks.
Walking through South Lake Union as a slow clap builds as I go down the block.
Oh my god! Like, I want to get that for Colin for Christmas.
Oh god, that'd be so good. Somebody should tell him that they stole the motto from his coding academy, though.
Yeah.
So back to their statement. Customers specifically mentioned the difficulty retaining documents due to weather.
Wait,
theft.
we need to translate that into Latin so it can be on the logo of Magnolia Mindset.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Anybody that knows Latin, let us know. All right, so customers specifically mentioned the difficulty they had in retaining documents due to weather, theft, and the
We don't even
general
want to
loss
talk
of
about
documents.
these people in any kind of like. It has to be completely abstracted. The people living and dying on the street.
Yeah.
You know.
No, customers. Doesn't that sound nice though? Customers. Well, and as one one critic of this biometrics program mentioned, part of the reason why they have trouble hanging on to documents is that Seattle PD throws them away every time they go and clean an encampment, which is also a Jenny Durkan initiative.
I mean, this language makes it sound like they're trying to develop a market, you know, which is again like a sinister indication that this is meant to be a permanent management situation. It's like if, you know, the city had been poisoned by lead, and instead of getting the lead out of the water, the city set up saw it as an opportunity to market fucking water filters, you know?
Yeah.
Like these are two completely different like levels of this is bullshit that is meant to be a permanent structure.
Yeah, pretty much. Well, I just thought we would finish because I thought she had the best take on it. But Tiffany McCoy from the lead organizer for Real Change, when Erica Barnett brought this issue up to her, said, "I just continue seeing with the Durkan administration this idea that technology will solve the entire housing crisis. We know that we need hundreds of millions of dollars for new housing to start digging ourselves out of this crisis, but instead of focusing on that issue, which will require some kind of new revenue, ideally progressive revenue, we're instead focusing on how we're going to efficientize our way out of the homelessness crisis."
Oh, I like efficientize. It makes it sound deliberately stupid. I like it.
Yeah.
That's great.
And it is.
I'm gonna start saying that. Yeah. I like that. That's good.
So
that's a good that's a good subtle dig.
Yeah. So just good old fashioned trash. So just loving it every day. The city giving us the goods. All right. So there was also another, our other favorite news publication, The Stranger, had a great story in their new issue where they count down, I believe it's their 25 biggest stories of the decade, since we're right about to close out the decade.
Well,
although,
technically, Brian,
isn't it next year, right? No. I know that you're putting a face and you're going to near nitpitty. Jesus Christ. Anyways, I was
being ironically pedantic because who cares? But
and apparently I can't say the word nitpick. But I think you're right. Like, that doesn't make sense, right?
Yeah. Okay.
On the
we sound stupid for having this conversation. Just this is over. I mean, we all got over it at the turn of the millennium.
Yeah. But so each writer took a little few paragraphs to discuss
the teens will be
story.
Ending. That's what matters.
Yeah, that they thought was the big story of the teens, particularly related to Seattle, right? And so Christopher Frizzle, who I'm sure has the best of intentions.
It's Frizzell.
Oh, whatever.
I like the way you say it, though.
Keep that in mind.
Like the Magic School Bus lady.
Yeah, keep that in mind when you hear this shit. So anyways, he got moment number 6 on the countdown, and his was Murray Meinert and #MeToo. So
wait, what? Oh, Murray. Okay, all right. I just that was so garbled that I didn't actually. I had to piece it together. I'm very tired.
So he goes ahead and he gives a quick rundown of Ed Murray's Me Too moment that ruined his mayoralship.
I think just glossing over it as a Me Too moment is a little misleading and downplays it a little bit.
We're going.
I hate to say that. I mean, because I don't mean to diminish the seriousness of what are more appropriately called Me Too allegations, but I mean, it's a little different. It's a little more.
Yeah, but all this is actually a build-up, right?
Okay.
So he goes over Murray. He devotes 2 sentences to Harvey Weinstein, and then he says,
again, I don't why you would make that connection at all.
whatever, you know. So he says, shortly thereafter, a source I have known for years told me that Dave Meinert, a prominent figure in Seattle's nightlife industry, raped her in 2001. I believed her immediately and asked if the stranger could report on it. Flipping page.
Wait, this is Christopher Frizzell saying this?
Yes.
He asked the stranger? Who did he ask? He didn't just post it?
So, she agreed on condition of anonymity and said she knew of other women who had stories about Meinert who also wanted to remain anonymous. I'm presuming he asked her about reporting on it, right?
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
So, I informed the publisher and the editorial director of The Stranger of the allegations. We consulted a lawyer about the legal risks of using anonymous accusations, and in January 2018...
Wait, like they didn't know that issue inside and out being journalists?
Yep. Don't worry, this story gets better. On January 2018, we assigned the Meinert story to staff writer Sydney Brownstone, who had won awards for reporting on a previous rape case. As with the Murray case, the new revelations about Meinert came out not in a courtroom, but in the media. Brownstone reported the story for several months in the Stranger's newsroom, but was hired as an editor at KUOW while she was still working on it. KUOW published Brownstone's reporting in July 2018. In a radio interview, Meinert denied the allegations, but was notably unable to define sexual assault. So the point is, it goes on and how this has affected Dave Meinert. But I like this retelling of history here at the end of the decade of what happened in that story.
Yeah, it's one.
So from my understanding, basically Sydney Brownstone started to investigate the story and just went ahead and took another job, like you do, and reported the story there. So I guess the stranger free and clear.
Yeah,
these sort of issues.
Yeah, it's fucking unbelievable. I mean, that's actually despicable. I mean, to pick that. I mean, he's reporting on this as the top 10, his Casey Kasem countdown, number 6, as if it's he's just the story. But of course, mysteriously, in a way that no one would care about if there hadn't been anything, deeply wrong with how the stranger handled this. No one would give a shit about the timeline and ins and outs of the stranger's reporting and Sydney Brownstone taking a job somewhere else. What is that all about, Brian? Who cares? Aren't we just talking about this creep who was outed? No, but of course, what he's just really plainly and obviously lazily doing is trying to whitewash the stranger's handling of this, which was to soft pedal it and to hold it back.
Yeah. Well, the stranger and specifically one sex columnist at the Stranger who is friends with Dave Meinert killed the story, right? That's the actual thing that should be
first
mentioned
inviting him to lunch to discuss it, right?
Yeah.
I don't remember. This has been a while, so I don't remember the details that came out firmly, but it might have been. Maybe it was either Dan Savage or Tim Keck who was reported somewhere that got lunch with Meinert to talk about it or something.
Dan Savage, yeah.
But I don't remember. But whatever. We know that these people, these other Seattle rich people who are friends with Dave Meinert, sat on this shit to the point where it's evident that if you were following along at the time, it really seems like Sydney Brownstone quit over it and went and got another job so she could report on the story accurately and in a timely fucking manner.
So maybe as the story, should be told, maybe within the Stranger's own paper, if they had any sort of ability for self-criticism, is Stranger tries to kill Dave Meinert's story because their editor, who is this fucking weight around all their necks, is personal friends with Dave Meinert, right?
Yeah,
and lost a good reporter in the process.
That would make the top 10 of certainly anyway, stories about the Stranger in the last decade, and its sort of slow and then rapid decline. I mean, it's disgusting.
Speaking of which, did you see Christopher?
So what? I guess we didn't read the whole thing. What the fuck did this have to do with Harvey Weinstein or Mayor Murray?
It's just showing the power of Me Too.
Okay.
Yeah, so Dave Meinert still owns businesses in the city. I mean, the Meinert story is actually an interesting thing about Me Too or whatever that you could talk about, which is that powerful people in the media tried to keep these stories from coming out, and even when they came out anyways, nothing happened for the most part. So the individuals stated, right, that actually was a giant betrayal of the victims for the most part.
Yeah, overall, yeah.
So I mean, we'll see. I mean, Harvey Weinstein might go to court. We'll see.
Yeah.
I have my doubts.
Yeah, absolutely.
So, I just thought we could close out because on Friday, while I was getting cultured, listening to NPR, I happened to catch the Weekend Review, and it has, usually there is some person from the Chamber of Commerce, an idiot from the Seattle Times, right, whatever. But this time they actually had your close personal friend and Sensei Charles Mudidi, I guess is what we're going with from The Stranger.
Mudede. Well, I wish we were friends, but he
Charles, that is an open invitation that Greg is sending your way.
Yeah, well, I mean, we got to have him on the show at some point, but
I'm going to get one of those necklaces that's like half a heart, and I'm going to send one to him, and I'm going to give you the other half. So hopefully one day when you guys meet, you can put them together.
Perfect. The only truly unique voice in media in this town in my lifetime.
And while normally I would fully endorse Greg's ban on listening to NPR ever, I actually do encourage people to go back and listen to that episode because it starts off talking about those 737 MAX.
Something he's been doing maybe among the best reporting on and analysis of, period.
Yeah,
anywhere.
He immediately starts talking about the stock buybacks and stuff like that Boeing goes into, and Boeing's
the heart
management
of the matter
structure. Yeah, and the funny part about it is even though it's a audio medium, you can see the eyes glazing over in the room.
You just read the vibe.
About this. Yeah, just no
the static just changes vibration in a subtle way. Yeah, I mean, no, it's not surprising. I mean, most people in this town are still viewing that as a technical, just like a technical whoopsie. Oh gosh, some bad software was developed. Some I's didn't get dotted, T's didn't get crossed. There was the shit happens.
Yeah, and probably being hopeful too, right? That Boeing's position doesn't get significantly worse, because what Modetti's talking about is basically if Boeing stock starts to tank, it could really expose a lot of fundamental weakness in the economy.
In other corporations.
in other corporations that could lead to an economic crash that we should probably care a lot more about and probably be actually doing news reporting on.
Well, and if you've been following this story, just the 737 MAX story, as closely as we have and Mudede has, and you haven't believed for a minute that they're just going to be any of these deadlines that they're going to be flying those planes, because they've got serious fucking problems that if you just read the basic updates in the Seattle Times, it's basically this little system that just has a problem. If you actually are seriously reading any of the real actual serious reporting that's going on, as we've talked about on the show, that this little piece of software that had a whoopsie that killed hundreds of people in 2 plane crashes was itself designed to cover up other much larger problems. So to solve it in a real way means going back to the drawing board on a number of things that are going to be costly and time consuming and a big fucking problem.
Yeah, and so they're going to shut down production at Renton, which employs 18,000 people, right?
Well, and as we know, vendors have already been cutting jobs like yours, for months now.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just going to pick 3 letters at random because all these vendors just have 3-letter names. But companies like AMT or whatever, their holding company, because all these places are held by holding companies now, who just like these are just decks in their stock, portfolio, right? Are just liquidating these guys, right?
Yeah.
And yeah, I mean that's been the reality, and
and that's under the radar because these is little. Nobody knows the names of all these suppliers. Boeing doesn't make all this shit; they just fucking assemble it. They design it and they assemble it.
Well, whereas like union Boeing workers might actually have something in their savings account to fall back on.
Yeah,
like these are people who don't, right? So these
people have been laid off left and right.
Yeah,
here in Seattle, other places too.
Yeah, and the other part of the story that like I feel has got really short shrift in the city is. So they're going to shut down production in Renton, but a lot of that work is being shuffled. Those people are being shuffled up to Everett, or they're staying in Renton to pick up work that's coming in from South Carolina, because the plant in South Carolina has been an unmitigated disaster, and it has its own 787 related safety problems that I feel like we should probably be getting a lot more reporting on, like the fact that there's probably a couple 100 787s currently in service with severe fire risk involved in them. Yeah, that's bad.
That could be an interesting development, that the 737 just never gets back off the ground, and they just move back production from non-union work plants in South Carolina to Renton, but that's sounds like that's happening on a small scale at least. But yeah, I mean it's gonna be a disaster. Well, what I loved about the announcement this week, I actually did hear. I happened to be in a car and I heard about the announcement that they were shutting down production, and when I heard some NPR dweeb. I was a passenger in this car.
Yeah.
Say that
Greg kept trying to reach over the Lyft driver's shoulder to turn off the radio. I kept getting slapped.
Some KOW turd reading a statement that was basically like, there's like, yes, we're shutting down. They've missed, they've all these projected, refly dates have been missed, and now they're shutting down production. But they say there will be no layoffs at this time.
Yeah,
and it's like, it was just such like a to just accept. I mean, that's the way the stance our media has to take. The rhetorical stance that public radio takes is basically uncritical of that. Like, they've lied about everything so far. Obviously, the day you announce you're shutting down production at the fucking Renton plant, you're not going to say, and that means you'll wait a fucking month, and then you'll lay everybody off,
Well, and no layoffs right now, right?
Yeah.
Right now is doing a lot of work.
Today.
Yeah. Right now, at this moment. Everybody's still got their job at this moment. That, too, like I said, I mean, one, that means, are we going to have then layoffs in South Carolina? The other thing that it means, too, is that what happens when some of those 787s that are currently in service catch on fire, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, basically Boeing has put a bunch of like time bombs in the air and is like, ooh, hopefully none of them go off, right? And if they end up with another major crash related
on a different plane.
Yeah.
I mean, different flagship plane.
Yeah, I mean, we're talking... probably a collapse of one of America's largest manufacturers that's going to have to be immediately bailed out by the federal government. But, it's, that's going to be a fucking disaster. That is economy shaking shit,
Yeah, and people that, like, these people are so fucking corrupt, and this whole system is so fucking bankrupt that they know these problems exist, but they're not, like, they're trying to delay and soft pedal and because they know if they take the big action that would be needed, then that's going to hurt their stock price.
When Modene pushed on this idea that like this could cause like a severe economic issue, especially in the Puget Sound area, the response from NPR's host or whatever was just like, well, wouldn't that just make maybe housing would finally be affordable in the area? And to which Charles just laughs and says, well, isn't that the rub that when the housing's finally affordable, you don't have a job, so we're just back at square one.
That's just fucking inane. But first of all, that's not necessarily the case.
Yeah.
What a trite fucking thing to say.
Mm-hmm. Well, for all those people who just have, a couple $100,000 in their savings account, it will be a bonanza of housing for them if the housing market crashes.
Yeah, what that guy's thinking is, I guess I need to sell then.
Yeah.
It's time to sell. That's
Under the table is texting his realtor. That's what
your wealthy Seattleite is thinking about this Boeing news. If they're reading, there's like, maybe now's the time to sell.
Yeah.
Been waiting all these years, watching it go up. Maybe now's the time. Most people are, what, I don't know. It's just whatever.
Well, I thought we'd close out. Charles again talked. I thought I had actually a pretty good take on another interesting thing they talked about on the show, which is Jenny Durkan's plan to reduce speed limits from 35 miles an hour to 25 miles an hour.
This happened the week before last. Yeah. But okay. Go on.
Yeah, and one, I can't remember what the other there was some like data nerd on the fucking show. Who cares? But one of these guys just crunches numbers for a living, so he just starts busting out all these statistics. But he actually had an interesting point, which he was like, pedestrian deaths from auto accidents have actually remained like pretty stable, kind of no matter what we're doing. He's like, and then even so, if we reduce it from like 20 people a year, pedestrians a year killed by cars to 18, it's like we're still basically saying like that's cool that 18 people are getting killed.
Yeah, right.
It's still like a really grim sort of math that we're doing. Right?
Well, that is the joke of this. Like, listen, it may not be a bad thing to take. Like, I'm no stan of fucking our car infrastructure. I don't, but like
we love cars.
This
we're in a car right now driving down the highway doing this podcast.
But this is just such a lame and this is just such a ineffective and backward and like stupid thing to do, because it's like, I mean, okay, like you said, it's probably not gonna save. God, where to even fucking start? First of all, what are people gonna like? All you're doing is taking something away from people. You're not offering anything fucking good. Fucking build public transit. Jesus Christ. But no, all it can be is, in the limited liberal imagination, is a new rule. Yeah. So if we all just do, but you know what? People don't obey rules. People don't obey speed limits. Yeah. People are certainly not going to obey a 25-mile-an-hour speed limit.
No.
So all this will be then is a new entry in the everything is illegal sort of strategy in America. This is, this is one of the prime sort of venues for that, like, strategy of social control is our roads and highways, where cops can just pull you over because reasons.
Yeah.
And then, then create a situation where they can then shoot you. Well, every single car on, like, some of the thoroughfares when there's not gridlock traffic is going to be going over 25 miles an hour. And so SPD will be able to choose which neighborhoods and which cars they choose to ticket, know?
Yeah, a ticket. And the thing, too, is once a police officer pulls you over, they then can invite themselves to, start searching your car. Yeah. They can go further from there. I mean, we've certainly had lots of simple cases of people being pulled over and then winding up dead, right?
Yeah.
And
but like that's the worst case stuff. I mean, that's gonna be a part of it, but like it's really just it's you're not doing anything. Like change the rules. If you want to cut down on pedestrian deaths, well, you're gonna have to move away from cars, which means building public transit, robust public transit. But if you want to, for the cars that are on the road, I'm sorry, just making a new rule stricter isn't going to do it. You have to, you're going to have to re-engineer the roads. It's not some new thing you have to figure out. Cities all over the world have done it in all kinds of ways that prevent you from driving that fast. Okay, you can't have What were we just talking about? It's just like, just follow the rules, everybody. If everyone would just follow the fucking rules. It's not how it will ever work.
It's a callback to the biometrics to solve homelessness thing, in that it's just a thing that it's a thing to do to show that you're doing something that actually has no impact.
Yeah.
And, my sort of take when I first heard about this, because Mayor Jenny, of course, had brought up Rainier as one of the first streets they're going to lower the speed limit on. And I remember ever since I moved here in the mid-2000s, right, people in Rainier were complaining about, pedestrian safety and things like that, and that something should be done. And basically, like, the city government collectively just told them to fuck off, like, over and over again, until recently. And I also remember that when I first moved here, when you went into Rainier, the community had one complexion. And all of a sudden, it has a different one. And it started to occur to me that, like, maybe we're thinking about this all wrong. This actually isn't about pedestrian safety or anything like that. This is how you gate a community without a gate, right? Once you gentrify the neighborhood... Once you gentrify the neighborhood, you essentially just make it really hard to, like, get in and around the neighborhood in the hopes that somebody will just avoid going there altogether, right? The outsiders will avoid going altogether.
You police when everything is illegal. You get to police a chosen undesirable population as a tool of gentrification.
Yeah, you'll notice if you go MLK on the south side of Seattle is a multi-lane road, right? And if you keep following it north, it cuts down to less and less lanes as the neighborhoods get more traditionally, expensive, right?
Yeah.
And the reality is when they wanted to expand MLK, they actually were going to make it like Aurora, and they wanted it going all the way up north, all the way through the U District and things like that, to relieve traffic off the highway and things like that. And those wealthy neighborhoods killed all that shit because they didn't want the poors driving through their fucking neighborhoods. So they specifically fucking chose to cut off and squeeze those neighborhoods. They also, those little short bridges that are over there, they wanted to raise them so that, truck traffic and stuff could get through. And again, they fought that because they knew that would be inviting people. This is how you gate communities without gating them, right?
Yeah.
And, maybe you'll go from 20 deaths to 18 deaths, which is a middling thing. But we all know the answer to that, which is actually mass transit. And I don't think that any of this has anything to do with fighting back against cars or anything like that. I just think it's just wealthy people shutting their neighborhoods down.
Well, it gets, sanctimonious liberals get to say, oh, yeah, we're combating car culture. You're not. This is not doing that at all.
Yeah. Which, again, Charles, to his credit on the show, was basically like, this city isn't set up for anything other than car travel. Like, we literally have a mayor who hates mass transit, and we had it at one point, tore it up, and we're not rebuilding it.
And the roads are designed to drive much faster than 25 miles an hour.
Yeah, which means people are going to do it. Also, people are squeezed.
Redesign the roads and have public transit that most people use.
Yeah.
Because it's good and available.
Yeah, and functions, right?
And then you will have less pedestrian deaths and a lot of other
and once
things.
the public transit becomes much more efficient than driving in a car, people are going to take it because, believe it or not, people don't enjoy their commutes. So whatever the fastest way to get somewhere and easiest way to get somewhere, that's the one they're going to take, right? And so, you actually have to invest in these things. And again, this is just another just bullshit out of the mayor's office. Not going to change anything. Just going to make being in the city that much more miserable.
It is going to piss people off well, okay, watch it not really happen. Mm-hmm. Watch, they make this big announcement, we're going 25 miles an hour citywide, but they're going to roll it out slow, apparently, right?
Yeah.
Well, watch it just, get a few roads, like you said, in some chosen places that are gentrifying.
Yeah.
And then just be forgotten about, they never gets that far. It never gets to ones that are going to piss off wealthy white people before she's up for re-election, certainly.
Yeah.
And I don't think pissing off, don't get me wrong, I don't think not pissing off, people who love their cars and their, their BMWs or their big trucks, or any, conservative I disagree with, is a strategy. I think it's fine to piss people off by making the city and the world a better place.
Sure, yeah.
And telling them to go fuck themselves.
Yeah.
But, there's no actual upside to this, so you could factor in that this, if you really start to go through with this, it will become a meaningless political football like signifier of like the war on cars that is not even happening, but like it'll be this symbolic shot in the war on cars that will be felt by everyone who gives a shit and wants to, but will have no positive effect.
Well, it was interesting. I was talking to somebody up in Snohomish, and we were talking about the it was I-907 or whatever that basically like made it the car tabs tax, right? And they had this like insane view of Seattle, because I was trying to explain like, we have this mayor who like hates public transit, and this is just another step towards killing it. And he's like, and also, I mean, like, you can't drive down there because they make it such a mess because they like want people to use the public transit. Like, no, that's not why this is happening. Like, everybody has like this insane image of what's going on here. Mayor Jenny doesn't hate car culture. Like, she is a fucking shill for Lyft, which is like a fucking disaster of car culture gone wild. She is hates fucking light rail and stuff like that, has refused to connect up like the streetcar lines, and has done everything she can. She even came up with that fucking bullshit fake story that they ordered trains that were like the wrong size for the track, which turned out to be bullshit. But she slipped to the media. But what she hates is you. She hates the poors coming into town. That's what she hates. And again, I think this is why people in Seattle love bike lanes so much too, is because a bike lane allows for easy travel for people who live in the neighborhood, but it makes it really hard for somebody from Federal Way to come into your neighborhood, right? And this is the logic behind it all, right? It's everything but an efficient transit system that would allow people to get around. They really don't want people to get around. Right?
It bears mentioning, to the city's credit at all, the other reason for the bike lanes that they don't necessarily talk about a lot, but is to redesign the roads, make them narrower, make the lanes narrower to slow down traffic. The problem is, I mean, that's great. That is part of the actual solution, is re-engineering all the roads. If it's just to add in bike lanes and it's not to accommodate public transit, then you're just like helping rich people make their 3/4 of a mile commute to work where they have a shower and can put on their tie.
And nobody cares when they show up or whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, and I mean, again, if you don't want cars in the city, the answer is you create great, efficient, and preferably free mass transit.
To the point that there's so fucking little traffic that you have to fucking take the roads down to one lane or eliminate pedestrianize whole fucking streets.
You get rid of large amounts of parking spaces. You turn that into, you expand living space by getting rid of parking spaces. And then people actually use it, which actually happens. And of course, everything in Seattle, nothing's ever happened before in the world until Seattle does it, right? But like, this is how most cities function, right? Like, even in Europe, they have rural areas where maybe there's slightly higher car ownership, and then urban areas where there isn't. And if you are one of those people in the rural area, you either take a train into the urban area, or you park in a parking lot way the fuck outside of the city, and you get on a train and go inside, right?
It's funny, like, growing up here, I think certainly I had this in my imagination, but this is a conversation I can imagine happening with people, is like, imagine a city of the future with no cars, where like, I guess you'd still need a car to like drive to a faraway place, but you'd have to park outside the city and like ride the monorail in. And it's like that, and you're picturing this like Jetsons future Seattle, and like you're like, Seattle do it, we'll be on the cusp, not realizing that in other like normal places in the globe, that was like an old system.
And it also encourages like denser living, which is better for the climate, all this kind of stuff. But because at some point you might get tired of living. The suburbs can't exist at a setup like that, right? Or they at least are going to be de-incentivized. But I don't know. It's trash. Whatever. As always, Seattle sucks, and it's not going to fucking solve anything. But cool. So that being said, why don't we push this manufactured home out into the bay and set sail?
Let's see if it floats
for another day.
Cool.
Oh man, we have I know that we have. Oh, I really should have written this down. Damn it. We have one new patron at least named Dave. Hey, what's up?
Yeah, hi Dave.
What's up, bud?
Hey.
And look, we're gonna leave this up to our audience. 50-50 that it's Dave Meinert. So thanks to our new patron. We'll be back on the boat probably with Colin next week, but until then, bye.
Yeah. Oh, look forward for a special Christmas present as well.
Yes, a special Christmas present will be stuffed into your stockings, you little piggies, so that you can have extra Seattle Sucks content for your Christmas vacation and dealing with your family.
Yeah.
All right. Well, until next time.